When it comes to the issue of tending to any sort of growing plants in the house, the halachos are completely different. So we're going to address that here in this video. So there are two things that we need to understand in order to be able to clarify this halacha. The first thing is what's considered to be in a house versus outside of a house. And the second thing is what's considered to be a potted plant versus a plant that, even though it's indoors, is still considered to be connected to the ground. So first we're going to address what's considered to be a house when it comes to the halachos of Shmittah. So the halacha is that any place that is normal and regularly used for planting is not considered to be in a house. So that means that even though physically you might have a house, let's say a structure, a full building, but it's a greenhouse, and inside there it's the normal thing to do, to plant. It's the regular activity that you do in that place. So that is not considered to be in a house, even though physically it's in a structure. Likewise, a rooftop garden, if you have a garden or any types of plants or trees or grass that are growing on the top of a building, because that is a normal thing to do, to have a rooftop garden, so that's also is not considered to be in a house, even though it's very high and elevated off the ground. So that's number one. In order to be considered halachically in a house, it has to be that it's not the normal thing to plant in this type of a place. It's not a place that is used for planting, and that includes all household plants in a regular home, meaning even though a windowsill in a regular home is a place that's normally used to put down flowers or something, however, assuming it meets all the other criteria, because this house, this building or apartment is not designated as a place for planting, so any of the plants that are there are going to be considered halachically in a house. Likewise, a mirpeset. So if it has a roof over it and it has walls that are 3 tvachim high all around, 3 tvachim is about 80 centimeters or about 31 inches. So then that is considered to be in a house, even though the walls are partially open. However, if it's on the actual wall itself and therefore parts of it are outside, like, some of the branches and the leaves go outside, so that's already not considered to be in the house. So that's number one, designating the place where these plants are growing. Aspect number two is this aspect of the connection to the ground that the plant has. We have in halacha this concept of an Acitz Naqov and an Acitz She'eno Naqov, a concept of a pot that a plant is in that has a hole in it and therefore it's considered to be connected to the ground, or She'eno Naqov, that it has no holes on it at all and it's considered to be disconnected from the ground, meaning the ground of the earth is not contributing to this plant's growth at all. All of its growth potential is located only within the pot itself. So in the Sfarim and in the Psakim, there is a great discussion about what exactly is an Acitz Naqov or an Acitz She'eno Naqov. When is it considered to be connected to the ground or not? Halacha l'maisa, practically speaking, the Psak, according to Rav Asher Weiss, this is in print in the Rav's Sefer on Hilchos Shvius in Siman Zayin, as well as a number of Tshuvos later in the Sefer. Rav Weiss holds very clearly that any plant that is indoors in a regular building in Israel, that means even if it's a ground floor, even if there's nothing underneath that floor, the way a regular floor is built here in Israel with multiple layers, there's concrete and there's sand with all the pipes and metal and then the tiles. So according to Rav Asher Weiss, any plant that is indoors is considered to be She'eno Naqov. So if it's physically in your house, which is not a normal planting place, and it is indoors in a normally constructed home, that is considered to be a house plant that the halachos of Shmittah in general do not apply. You're allowed to water such a plant. You would be allowed to pick any vegetables or herbs that grow from that plant, or flowers, or anything along those lines. The halachos of Shmittah in general do not apply. However, when it comes to actually planting, actually putting seeds into a flower pot or into any sort of utensil in which to grow things. So in that situation, we are nohig to be machmir. While there are some mekilim, there are those who are lenient in terms of planting. Halacha l'maisa, practically speaking, the accepted practice, and according to Rav Asher Weiss as well, he said this is certainly the accepted practice, is that we do not plant actual plants during the Shemitah year, even though it's indoors and completely separated from the ground. However, short of actually planting those seeds, you're allowed to do anything in terms of caring for that plant, helping it grow, helping it thrive, helping it produce any sort of fruits or spices. Now, what this means is that any questions or issues in halacha that you may hear about, perhaps you hear about opening the window next to plants to let them have sun, or picking up a potted plant and moving it from one place to another, or any such question, none of those questions apply in a regular home or building or structure with a regular Israeli floor, according to Rav Weiss. All of those halachos simply don't apply because these are plants to which the halachos of Shmittah are not applicable. And when it comes to the halachos of Terumos and Maaseros have to be taken from those plants. So if you've got, basil or something like that growing inside, so you're allowed to eat from it, but you have to take off Terumos and Maaseros, but we do so without a bracha, because this is a complicated topic, and because there are many sfeikos, many questions involved. So while we are lenient and we're allowed to eat from the produce and we're allowed to tend to the plant, we will not make a bracha when it comes to Terumos and Maaseros, just out of extra caution. Okay, so to sum up, if we have a plant that is in a house, meaning in a structure that is not meant for planting, and there's a roof over it and there are walls around it, and that plant is on a regular floor in a regular home in Israel, so then you are allowed to do everything with that plant with the exception of actually planting. However, if you're talking about any other type of a floor, like, let's say you have an added extra place outside that's not constructed in the regular way, and you maybe just put down, some concrete to level it out, so that might already be a shaila. If you've just got concrete over the ground, and you've got, a plant in a planter with a hole, that already will be a real question. However, again, plants that are in a regular home in Israel, indoors, not on the roof and not on an open roofed mirpeset, indoors, you are allowed to tend to them as usual during Shmittah. These shiurim are mostly sourced in the Sfarim of Rav Tzvi Cohen Shlita.